Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Avery Ito Fujita. I am one of the instructional designers for the UHCC system. This Teacher to Teacher webinar is brought to you by the UHCC Systemwide Online Education Committee. And this webinar focuses on providing a clear overview of what you need to know as we fully transition from Laulima to Lamaku. Although we have been using Lamaku for a little over a year, the transition is not over as ITS is currently completing the final wave of Laulima migrations. As we approach the migration request deadline of July 31st, it's a great time to consider what you need to take with you as we complete our journey with Laulima. And this sentiment is creatively reflected in today's webinar title, The Great Laulima Cleanup, What to Keep, What to Move, What to Let Go. And we are happy to have three speakers with us today. The first is Ross Egloria from Honolulu CC. Ross is an instructional designer and academic support professional at Honolulu Community College, where he works to enhance teaching and learning through the effective integration of educational technology. With extensive experience in faculty development, learning management systems, and student support services, he is committed to helping educators create engaging and accessible learning environments. Next, we have Laureen Kodani. Laureen is an assistant professor and instructional designer at UH Maui College. She has collaborated with instructors across the UH system to support all aspects and modalities of course design and development, including assisting faculty with the major transition from Laulima to Lamaku. And lastly, we have Leanne Urasaki. Leanne has been with Hawaiʻi Community College since 2006 and has led the Instructional Technology Support Office since its founding in 2011. She is dedicated to advancing distance education through faculty training, pedagogical support, and the strategic integration of new instructional technologies. We are very happy to have these three speakers with us. Thank you again for your time and for sharing your knowledge with us. Just as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded to the UHCC System ID's YouTube channel. A follow-up email will be sent to you with a link to the YouTube video by the end of the week. After the presentation, we will use the remaining time for Q&A. However, if you do have questions along the way, feel free to place those questions in the chat and we will get to them as soon as possible. I will now turn the presentation over to Ross.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for showing up during the summer to this professional development opportunity. We originally did this presentation at HISSI this past March. We were asked to do it again given the content that we were covering seems more relevant now, especially since many of you have seen the announcement from UHITS that July 31st is going to be the deadline for migration requests. And after that, they're going to stop taking it. So there is some urgency uh, going through your Laulima stuff and figuring out, like we said, what to keep, what to move, and what to let go. And I think the hardest one is what to let go. Um, but I will turn it over to Laureen, and she will jump right into this.
May I ask a question really quickly about that deadline?
You go ahead.
Okay, this is Jana Smith at Hawaii Community College. Sorry. Will we still have access to Laulima?
As far as we know, yes. Laulima's not turning off. What's
Okay,
happening
so we
is
can go in and do our own copy and paste and whatever.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah. All right, Laureen, it's all yours.
Oops, sorry about that. Good morning, everybody. I'm Laureen Kodani with Maui College. I am going to start off our presentation by quickly reviewing the migration and site deletion timelines. And I say quickly because we have links in a handout that we're going to share with you at the end of today's presentation that will guide you with everything that we're talking about today. So you can see the share screen that I'm doing right now. I'm pretty sure you can. We're going to talk about the migration schedule first. So there is a web page that UHITS and UHDL or UH Online created that provides some guidelines that are required for migration and the link to do or to submit a migration request. The deadline to request a migration for any course in Laulima to Lamaku is July 31st. So we are quickly approaching that deadline. At the moment, an active CRN is not required up until this point. You may recall that an active CRN was required to request a migration, but they are now allowing you to migrate some of the courses that you think you may teach in the future, that you may need or want, and they are allowing some of that. Keep in mind, there are some guidelines and some requirements in order to for them to do the migration for you. I'll let you read the timeline webpage for that. Essentially, what they're saying is you cannot request a migration for every instance of a course that you've taught. There are some guidelines and requirements for that. To follow along with the Laulima site deletion schedule, as you know, at the beginning of this year, they have began deleting, if not have already completed deleting courses from 2007 to 2014. They are now getting ready to start deleting sites from 2015 to 2020 next month. So if you have any sites during that time frame, start planning. Leanne's going to give you some really good tips for that. Start planning and begin to request migration. So keep that in mind. And then classes for 2021 will be deleted in December 26, 2022, December 27, 2023, December 28th, 2024, December 29. So in our handout, we've sort of consolidated that information for you, curated that information for you, but I do encourage you to please read the migration timeline schedule thoroughly so you have a clear understanding of what that's about. And then, of course, the LMS retention practice SOP document as well. Now, for Lamaku's site deletion schedule, if you have already migrated one or more sites from Laulima to Lamaku, they are titled reference sites in Lamaku. So those are not kept forever. You are required to either move them to one of your 3 sandboxes. You're allowed up to 3 sandboxes, or you can move the content to a live course site. So you're going to need to be, I would say, plan in advance and be aware of what you have and what you want to keep and what you want to use so that you can use your sandboxes efficiently, moving them to a live course site. Of course, you'll have that information for 5 years after. So the reference sites do get deleted. So anything created prior to February 1st of 2025 will be deleted at the end of this year. All of the academic year 2025-26 classes at the end of this year as well as any non-CRN courses that were created or reference sites. Anything that was migrated over to Lamaku become reference sites. Those will all be deleted at the end of this year. And then, of course, there's a SOP for the retention practice for Lamaku, and we have included the dates here that you can read and reference when you receive the handout down the road. Keep in mind that non-academic course sites that enroll UH employee participants will remain active for up to 3 years from the site's creation date. After that period, the site will be archived basically. And if you need to reference that site, you'll have to request for it to be activated again. And they're going to provide some info for that down the road, but just to keep that in mind. I think that's it for now in terms of migration and site deletion schedules. I'm going to hand it over to Leanne, who will cover the next part.
Thanks, Laureen. Let me get my screen share going. Okay, So you should be seeing my screen. So before we get into the steps, okay, so if you joined us a little bit late after we got started, the session is being recorded. The Avery and Ty will be sending out a link to the recording by the end of the week. So, and also the presentation, or what we're calling the presentation, this document that you see on screen, we will be sharing the link to this document at the end. So we'll have a link for you to get a copy or to access this this document. So Laureen went over the retention schedule or the deletion schedule. So, you know, the main things are, right, if you're going to request any migrations from Laulima, that service is going to end July 31st. So you want to get those requests in by the end of July. Also in July, the older Laulima sites, so one round of Laulima site deletions have already happened. So if you were with Laulima from the very beginning, 2007, from 2007 to 2014 have already been deleted, or they're in the process of getting those deleted. The next wave or the next round of deletions come in July, next month, and those are for the Laulima sites that were created 2015 to 2020, except any sites that were created for spring 2021, right? Because the sites created for a semester, you get the semester before. So technically, spring 21 sites were created probably around October of 2020. Those will not be deleted yet. Those will go into the next batch. Okay, so I saw a comment about someone already kind of lost some of their sites. It is possible if it was the very oldest of Laulima sites. Okay, so this is why, because of all these July deadlines, this is why we wanted to have this workshop. And Avery folks asked us to present this workshop again to help you work through what am I going to keep and how do I keep it? Probably the more important part. So Laureen went through this schedule once already. So my part is to now talk about the steps of how to retain things. So very important. You don't need to retain everything. You won't be able to retain everything. Okay, so it's very important to figure out what you're going to retain and kind of work through your Laulima sites to figure that out. So the first step that we're recommending is that you make a list, take an inventory of your Laulima sites. Okay, even if it's not going to be deleted just yet, because of that July deadline to request migrations, and that's an integral part of this process, you should take a full inventory now to figure out what you want to retain or you might possibly need to reuse in Lamaku. Okay, so step one is to take this inventory. And so what we did was we prepared
Sorry, Leanne, can you increase the size of the document?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, sorry.
Let me get that. How's that? Is it better?
Yep, looks good. Thank you.
Okay. So, and you know what? While I'm doing this, I'm going to put a link into our chat for the copy of the list. Okay, so we created a list, a spreadsheet, I'm sorry, to help you with this inventory. So the link I put in chat will make a copy of what you're seeing on my screen. It'll make a copy of that file and put it in your Google Drive that you can then use. It'll be your personal copy. We can't see it. Nobody else can see it. Okay. So it's a very simple spreadsheet. Once you get it, you can edit it, you can change the columns, but this is what we started with to help you get started with this process. So when you're taking your inventory, you definitely want to list out the Laulima site titles. And when I wrote this Laulima site title, it's when you're in Laulima, it's what you see in the button. That's the Laulima site. And the reason why we include some of these specific things is because if you do request a migration, this is the information the form will require. So that way you don't have to go back to Laulima again and try to find these things. Okay. And before I even move further, I just want to give you some advice. You don't need to log every single site because I know some of you out there might have hundreds. I know I have 100, maybe more than 100 sites. It's not important that you list all of them, but your potentials. Which ones do you think you might want to migrate over? List those first, and then you'll have a short list to then decide really which are the ones I'm going to request. Okay. One of the rules when you request the migration is you will only be allowed to request one migration per course per modality. So if you teach English 100 and you taught it face-to-face 16 weeks, that's one modality. If you taught it 16 weeks, but you taught it completely asynchronous, that's a different modality. And it's maybe not just modality, because what we've heard is if you taught it writing intensive, that would be allowed as another migration. Okay, so if you taught English 100 face-to-face every semester for the past 10 years, you're not going to be able to request all of those. You're going to have to pick one, the best one. Okay, so this spreadsheet is to help you whittle down and figure out what you're going to need or what you want to bring over. So the site title, again, is what's in the button in Laulima. Then it's the site URL. So that's the web address. So again, once you open up a site, so say I go into this OER site, you're just going to copy and paste the web address. So that's what goes into the site URL box. The term or creation date. So if it is a course, it's pretty easy, right? It'll say if it was a fall 2021 course or a spring 2019 course. If it's a non-academic site like mine is not tied to a CRN, it's going to ask for a creation date. And so if you need to find that, you go to, and where is it? Site info. And the creation date is on that first tab where it says site information. And the creation date is here, November 14, 2018. So that's the creation date. So that's what I would copy and I would put into this spreadsheet. The rest of these are notes. So here's where I would write down if it was what modality or if it was a writing intensive, it was synchronous, it was a hybrid, what's special about this site, and then any other notes in the next field. That, this is the one where you did that awesome group project. Something that's going to help you figure out which one of these I want to migrate. The last three columns, the first one that I didn't talk about, the migrate, that's your end decision. So after you get this list, is this something I want to migrate or not? Yes or no? And then these two I'll talk about a little bit later, and Laureen will also show you this part. The exporting the Brightspace package, and I know that doesn't make sense to you just yet. That's part of our process. It's in the following steps. Once you request and get your content migrated over into Lamaku, the way to preserve it is to export a package. So it's kind of like downloading that course into a file. So this is the decision whether you've downloaded it. And then when you download it, it's going to give you a really generic naming convention to that file that you're probably going to want to change to make it something that makes more sense to you. Kind of like when you download pictures, it just has some file name with the date or something, and it's not really descriptive. You don't know what that picture is unless you open it. So it's going to do the same thing when you export that package. It's going to give you a generic file name that you're going to want to customize so that it makes sense to you later. Okay, so this is the sample spreadsheet that we created to help you take an inventory. And again, the inventory is this step 1. Okay, so now that I've shown it to you, I'll just kind of read through this. So this should hopefully make some sense, right? Include in your site list the Laulima title that's in the button, the URL, which is the web address, and then the notes about that course. Couple things to point out. In your Laulima sites, if you're using the ATS tool, the Assignments, Tests, and Surveys tool, which is the older, more legacy tool, Most of us have switched over to using the quizzes tool. If you're still using that older tool, please note that only certain question types are supported in the current migration process, which is most of the ones you're using. These bottom two, the Likert scale and the single choice, are not question types that are used often, but just know that if you are using those, you might have to just recreate those after the migration or when you're ready to use that course. If you're using large question pools, right, when they randomly drew 10 out of the 50 questions into your test, please note that there are special instructions to make sure that those question pools come over properly. And that will be linked in the handout. And then the other legacy tool is the modules tool. That was the older tool. Most people have moved over to using the lessons tool in Laulima. If you are using the modules tool, again, there are some special instructions in here that will help get that content to come over a little more smoothly. Okay, so that's step one, take an inventory. Step two is to go ahead now, once you have your inventory filled out and you've kind of looked at, okay, there were 2 really good English 100 face-to-face courses that I taught that I have. Which one do I want? And so looking at the notes that you made, or this one had the really good group discussion, or this one had the really good final capstone project. But once you decide which one you want to migrate and you mark that as a yes, for that one modality, right? One course per modality. Once you have that information, then you will go ahead and submit the migration requests. So there is a form in Kuali Build that you will fill out. So that's linked here in the handout. And again, deadline to submit these requests is at the end of July. So you'll need to do this inventory or some sort of decision making and make sure you submit all of your request forms by the end of July. Academic course content. So these are the ones tied to your CRNs, right? Your CRN course sites. There are some rules. The migration request must be submitted by the teaching faculty, the instructor of record for that course. If somebody shared with you a course site and you're not the owner of that site, there are some additional steps that need to be taken to ensure that the actual owner, the creator, the person who has the copyright or the intellectual property rights to that course content has given permission. Okay. For non-academic and non-credit course content, so if you have a site like I have for professional development or other non-CRN tied information or sites, there are, again, a couple rules. Migration requests can only be submitted by current faculty, UH faculty or staff. And then something that they're pushing really hard, that's a change from Laulima. Laulima, they gave out sites to anybody who wanted it for whatever purposes, have a site, use it. We're now in a paid structure, right? We're paying for Brightspace, which is our Lamaku instance, and we have space constraints. And so they are limiting the amount of sites, right? So we're limited how many sandboxes we can have. They're going to delete older sites to help us stay within our budgeted space. So what they're saying is that Lamaku is not appropriate for informational or repository use. For example, someplace to store files or forms, committee work. If you have a department site where your faculty in your department used to keep resources or forms or documents, those types of sites are not going to be allowed and they may deny your request. And instead, they are recommending that you either use Google Drive, which I know, again, takes up your personal space, right? Google Drive also has limits, or UH Dropbox if there's sensitive data involved. So one of the determining factors that they've provided is that appropriate uses of non-academic sites for collaboration shouldn't utilize Lamaku activities. So if it's professional development, or you're going to be using the discussions, the polls, the assignments, quizzes, tools, in some capacity. So you might want to add that to the form if there's a spot to add how you're going to be using this site to help them not reject your request. Okay, so main things here, once you've decided what you're going to migrate over, you're going to submit the request. Okay, and then once you get approved and they create, right, when they migrate your course content from Laulima, it's going to come into Lamaku as a reference site. At that point, spend some time to review and edit those reference sites. Okay. As you probably have all done before, as you've probably everyone in this room has migrated content from Laulima before, you know it's not perfect. There are probably things that you need to change or fix, whether it's in formatting or something or other. And the reason why we're going to ask you to do this now is because the next step of the process, you can kind of see it peeking down at the bottom over here, is you're going to export that content from the Laulima the Lamaku reference site into a downloaded package. And very important here, when you download it, it's great because you have it on your computer or wherever you choose to store it. It is yours. They can't take it away. They can't delete it. It's like you put it on a jump drive and it's yours forever. However, you cannot open, you cannot view that content. So it's kind of just sitting there until you bring it back and reopen it in Lamaku into a site. Okay, so when you download it, that's why we're saying make sure you name it something that you're going to recognize, because you may eventually have a bunch of these downloaded packages on your computer or your jump drive, wherever you choose to save it. And it's going to sit there in what we call like cold storage. It's going to sit there until you need it again, but it's not something that you can open and edit at any time. Okay, so that's why we're going to recommend that you take a look at it. You do any of the major main fixes that you want to get done in that site while you have access to it in Lamaku. And then you're going to proceed to step 4, where you're going to export the package. Okay. So I know we said we'd hold questions to the end, but I thought this might be a good break to ask if anybody has a question that we might want to answer. Avery, was there anything in the chat that we might want to address now?
Nothing in the chat so far, but everyone, like Leanne said, feel free to post your questions.
Okay, so wow, so go ahead and post your questions in chat.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Sure, Gandhi.
So I'm the department chair for social sciences, and basically we have a Laulima site that we've had for years and years, and all of our syllabi are in there. What do you recommend we do? I mean, downloading years and years and years of syllabi and uploading them to a Google Drive would take a million years. So what is the recommendation with that? Do we just leave them in the Laulima site? Like, will we have that access for years, or what shall we do?
Okay, Candy, that is a great question. And actually, I think Ross is going to be covering, and I'm sorry if I'm scrolling really fast. Ross will actually be covering some of this later on about how to save Laulima information. So hold on to that question. But the Laulima site will eventually be deleted. Okay, you will still have access, but depending on when the creation date is, right? So since that's a departmental site, make sure you go into site info, take a look at that creation date. Like this one is 2018, because that will determine back up in the deletion schedule. Mine is within this range. So that site that I was just looking at in Laulima is going to be deleted this July. Okay, so you want to definitely take a look at that, but hold on to that question and see if Ross answers it. And if not, we'll circle back to it at the end. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to stop share so that Laureen can take back over.
Thanks, Leanne. Okay, I know we're probably sharing a lot of information that you're worried about retaining, just a quick reminder, we will be sharing the link to this handout with everyone, so you'll have the links and the steps and the instructions. So right now, as Leanne mentioned, once you've done your inventory, you've decided which Laulima sites you want to migrate and retain content for future use. Keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, you are allowed a maximum of 3 sandboxes. So you can copy any one of those reference sites into one of your sandboxes, up to 3, and edit and work in it, and then export it later if you want to use your sandbox as a development site for another course. So there are ways that you can work around retaining and saving some of the content from your previous Laulima sites. And so one of the ways that you can do that is called exporting a Brightspace package of your Laulima reference site. I would recommend, and Leanne mentioned this as well, that you clean up the reference site and design it and set it up the way you think you would use it in a course before you export it. Of course, if you choose not to do that, just keep in mind when you import it back into Lamaku later, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute or so. You're going to have to work on cleaning it up and setting it up the way you want to use it in a course. Some people find it easier to just clean it up and work on it before they export a package. So all of your Laulima sites that have been migrated to Lamaku that you want to keep for later use, you can export as many of those sites as you want. Friendly reminder, Leanne just said this, and I know I'm reiterating what she said, but it's really important to remember. Once you export the package or the file, do not open it. You won't be able to view it on your computer anyway, because it's not, your computer will not have Laulima or Lamaku on your computer. You log into Lamaku as a web-based platform, so you won't be able to view it on your computer. So keep that in mind. It's simply a way for you to archive the site and archive the content until you're ready to use it again. Then you'll upload it, or import it, I should say, back into Lamaku, either into a live course site or into one of your sandboxes. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the steps, but first I just want to quickly read through the steps that we have here, and then we're going to go to Lamaku and I'll demonstrate the steps, and it is much easier than you may think it is. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, and again, I'm just reading what's in the handout, and then we're going to go do a live demo, is go to the Laulima reference site that you want to retain or archive a copy of. You're going to go to course admin and then to import export copy components. You'll select export as Brightspace package. Click the start button, and then within a minute or so after this, it's really quick. You're going to select all components and click continue. On the following page, Lamaku will ask you to confirm that you want to export all of those components. You'll scroll down and you'll say include course files in the export package, and then click the blue export button. On the last page, you're going to see the following message. Your export has been started. And this will give you, it gives you a status sort of update of the progress of that. And you'll receive a notification in the updates alerts section of Lamaku when it's completed. And at that time, you'll be able to click the blue done button or navigate away from that page. The export process is pretty quick. It only takes a few minutes, depending on the amount of content that you have in your site. When the export package is ready, you'll see the notification in the updates alerts. And we have a little screenshot of what that looks like. And the update alerts is the bell icon and Lamaku in the top right corner of your Lamaku page that you're looking at. You'll click the notification to open the export summary page, and then click the link to download. Now, don't click to open the file. You just want to download the file. Do not unzip the folder. Do not open it in any way. Once you do, it's worth nothing, really. You won't be able to import it back into Lamaku and use it in Lamaku. So keep in mind, this is just a way to archive all of that content. You won't be able to view it on your computer. Do not unzip or open that folder. Once it's downloaded, right-click on the file name and rename the zipped folder with something that makes sense to you. Remember, Leanne shared with you that spreadsheet that you'll have a list or an inventory of the sites that you want to potentially migrate and then archive or export a package. Give it a useful name, English 100 Fall 26, something like that. Something that makes sense to you, that's succinct but very descriptive. And then you're going to move that zipped folder. Again, don't open it, just move it to the desired archive or storage location, whether it's a special folder on your desktop or it's an external drive, a jump drive, or a larger external drive if you have a number of courses that you're going to be exporting. And again, do not open that zipped folder. All right, let's move to Lamaku. Okay, so I'm just using one of my sort of template sites that I have for my campus. And you can use this process for any site in Lamaku. It doesn't necessarily need to just be for a reference site. If you've got current sites that you're working on now that you've already taught and you want to retain information, you'll be able to export those as well if you want to. Just remember that it doesn't keep student information. So if you're hoping to keep student information, that's not something that you'll be able to keep. All right, so when you're in the site that you want to export a package, go to Course Admin in the upper left corner. And then you're going to look for import, export, copy components. And I've got my list in alphabetical order. So I can go to import, export, copy components. And I'm going to select the option export as Brightspace package. And then click start. And then I will say select all components. So your list will probably look a lot longer than the list we're looking at here, because you'll probably have more content and other tools that you're using in the site with content. But you're going to see a list and you want to select all components, then click continue. And then it's going to ask you to confirm that you want to export all of the components. Don't forget to select include course files in the export package. So any files that you have related or in the course, you want to be sure to include that as well. Once you've selected that, you can click export. And then it'll say the export has started. You'll receive a notification in the update alerts when it is completed. And it's as simple as that. And again, you'll see the update alerts here. And you can see that this is a small course site, so it was very quick. Once you see that, you'll click that. And you'll see the click here to download the export zip package. And this is where you'll click and download the package. Again, don't save it. I'm sorry, save it, but don't open it. So I'm going to do a stop share real quick. So it's very simple. It's not difficult to do. It's not very time consuming. What I recommend, as Leanne mentioned earlier, that you be methodical about how you do it so you can keep track of the sites that you're archiving or exporting to archive on your personal computer. Any questions up to this point before we move on? Great. Now we're going to hand it back to Ross.
Okay. for my part, let me talk about the other stuff. And you'll get what I mean. Let me find what I need to share. Okay, so there was a question earlier from Sandy, I think, about a lot of syllabi that you need to bring over. I think one of the questions I wanted to ask Sandy was, are they all in your resources folder in Laulima?
I believe so. I
Okay,
know that sounds terrible, but yeah. So I kind of switched to a Google Drive. But yes, I believe they're all, well, whatever one, maybe it's no, it's the file drop, where you could like create a name.
okay.
And then that it was actually I think private, so at first where they would upload their syllabi underneath their name. So it was the file drop.
In Laulima.
In Laulima, yes.
So if I'm not mistaken, when you use the file drop tool, I think it does store it in the resources folder, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm hoping it is, because if all of the syllabi that you need to download are in that resources folder, there's a pretty quick way to get all of those files out. In the handout that we're going to be passing out to everyone very shortly, as we get closer to the conclusion of the workshop, you're going to have this link. And on the last page with these notes and FAQs, you're going to have this little handout about how to download multiple files. And this is what the handout looks like. So there's a tool called CyberDuck, completely free. This is all detailed on the UH ITS website, the link of which is at the bottom of the handout. But it's a pretty straightforward process. One, you have to get and download the application, which for some of you, if you're using a personal device, that should be pretty straightforward. But for those of you who are using institutional devices, you may need to get approval, or you may need to ask your own individual IT departments to download and install this. But basically, you can do it on a Mac or a PC. Once you install this CyberDuck application, that's step one. Step two, you open a connection, and it's a specific connection. It's called WebDAV. Once that connection window opens up, you have to input certain settings. So the server, this is the kind of part that screws everybody up. The server information you get directly from your Laulima site. So in your Laulima, if you were to click on your resources folder, there actually is a tab that says transfer files in your resources folder in Laulima. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll find a URL right here at step one. It says select the following URL, copy it to your clipboard. This is the URL that you need if you are going to use this CyberDuck process to try and get all of your stuff out of your resources folder in Laulima. So that's where you would just copy this exact address that you see in the transfer files tab of your resources folder in Laulima. You would paste that into the server line of your CyberDuck connection window, set it to port 443, your username, UH username, don't add @hawaii.edu, it's just your username, and then your UH password. There's going to be another option that says anonymous login, don't select it. And then another one that says SSH private key, you don't touch that, just leave it blank, and then you click connect. And then what happens is that CyberDuck makes a tunnel to your resources folder in Laulima. And then in CyberDuck, you'll see all of the files in that resource folder in that Laulima course. And then you can just grab and drag and drop to your desktop or download folder or wherever wherever you want, and it will then start the transfer process of pulling all of those files. So if you have, hundreds or thousands of files in that resource folder, you can select the whole thing and bring it over all at once, and all you have to do is just sit and wait until it transfers over everything. Assuming they're not, very big files, especially if they're documents, they'll come over pretty quickly. But this is a great way for those of you who have a lot of stuff in your resource folder, and that's the stuff that you want to save and not necessarily the course. Go with this process. Much faster of getting all of the resources stuff out. For those of you who get stuck on this, Laureen or Leanne or Avery, Ty, myself, anybody can help with this process. You just need to do it a couple of times and you get the hang of it. Sometimes the drag and drop thing can hang you up, but once you get the hang of it, again, it's pretty straightforward process. So, Kenny, I hope that might help with your specific need of getting multiple files out. For others of you who are on the on this webinar, just know that that resource is there. So again, as you evaluate your Laulima sites, if you're finding that really it's just the resources that you want to save, if it's a few resources, you can just do a manual download direct from your resources folder. But if you're finding like you have folders and folders and over 100 files that you need to get out of there, use this option. Download multiple files from resources. For some other things, Leanne was mentioning that modules does not come over, but lessons does. So in that case, right, for those of you who heavily used modules in your Laulima sites, you're going to need to do a workaround, which unfortunately is going to require copy and pasting content to another medium like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, or even take screenshots of pages, maybe use optical character recognition technology from a scanner to recreate that in digital. But even though it's going to take some work for those of you who use modules instead of lessons, because you can't migrate that over, at least you won't lose it. So, take it with, silver lining, that at least you can still see some of that stuff. Also for tests and quizzes, there are some types of questions that don't come over. And so for those types of questions, another option that you can do, you can print a paper version of the assessment. So again, you don't lose the questions. Some of you have, test banks that are just thousands of questions. And so that might not be a workable solution because, printing, right, your test banks that have thousands of questions is going to be untenable. Just, you can't do it. So connect with one of us and we'll try to figure out a creative solution to help you get some of that stuff out. And again, if you use random draw, right? So what happens in the migration process, if you already had a Laulima test that was using random draw, it's not going to pull everything over. So what needs to happen is you basically need to create a single quiz that has all of your questions in it before you request the migration of that site. Again, connect with your campus instructional designer, one of us, or reach out to one of us and we can help walk you through how to do that. But doing that before you request the migration will save you a lot of headache, because then everything will come over, and then really all on the Lamaku side, all you have to do is some reorganization. If you, right, the kind of more headachy thing is remembering if you use the random draw in a class that you did 10 years ago, right? That's the more like, when I did this class, I kind of think I did random draw, but I'm not really sure if I did, right? So again, connect with your instructional designer, have them take a look. We can help you assess and see if you actually did use random draw. And if you did, then how do we work around that to make sure that we get all of your questions over before you request the migration. Same thing for assignments, discussions, right? You're basically copy pasting content to another medium. And then for gradebook, so what I was just, as we were talking about this, I went back to the, Yara, I see your hand up. I'll get to you in just a second. I went back
Thank
to the
you.
request form this morning. And so on the what used the former Discover Lamaku website, we have the request forms page, and I was looking at the migration site, and underneath the following will not migrate over to Laulima section. I noticed that it lists both Gradebook and Gradebook Classic. For all of us, me, Leanne, and Laureen, and Avery, we're pretty sure that it was bringing over Gradebook in prior migrations. I don't know if that's changed. So, um, grain of salt, just when you put your migrations in, I'm not quite sure if your gradebook information is going to come over.
Ross, this is Leanne.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't even if it did before reminder, it will not bring over any student grades. So the only thing that would actually come over would be the structure, right? Your categories or your weighted percentages, those types of rules. So if it was and is no longer coming over, that would be the thing that you would have to redo once you get your Lamaku site is set up the grade book, go through the shoot, I can't remember what it's called, the setup process, those steps,
Yeah.
and make your decisions just to set up the rules again.
Right. Yeah, because I was thinking, some of you have manually you create manually graded items, right? So in Laulima, when you create a manually graded item, just like in Lamaku, it's not attached to a tool, right? You're inserting that direct graded item directly on your gradebook or gradebook classic. If that's not migrating over, you're going to forget that you actually created this manually graded item. So that's why I was just thinking about sort of those kind of scenarios where if the gradebook's not coming over, you have to kind of be mindful at taking a look at your Laulima gradebook and just sort of perusing. Okay, how did I set this up? What was I using categories? Did I have weighted grading? Did I have any manually graded items on here? What did I offer extra credit? All of those kinds of things. So even when you do request a migration, as soon as that migration is completed, take a look at that reference site that's created and compare it to your Laulima site. And so that you can kind of see, okay, what came over, what didn't, what looks right, what doesn't look right. What might I need to copy and paste manually because it didn't come over, while you still have access to, right, your Laulima sites. And then retaining and maintaining protected data. So your executive policy only requires faculty to retain gradebooks for 3 years after course completion, right? So if we work backwards from spring 2026, which was our last semester, right, then we're looking at spring 2023. So essentially anything prior to 2023 doesn't need to be retained per executive policy. So for those of you who are worried about your student info in Laulima, it's kind of basically like, don't worry about it. And again, all of that stuff would live with your registrar anyway, as far as final grades for the students that took your courses in prior semesters. But if you are sort of worried about that, you can export grade information from Laulima. In Gradebook Classic, you would do it from the All Grades tab, and in the Gradebook tool, it's from the Import Export tab. and that will then include feedback. So there is ways that you can save your old student grade information, but just be careful how you retain that on your computer because of these are student records. So just be mindful about how you save that information. And then finally, as Laureen was talking about, right, when you export out your reference site as a Brightspace package in order to store it, that this is the process by which you can then re-import it back into an active course site, whether it's a sandbox, an active CRN, a non-academic live course site, right? One of the three. Yana, let me get back to your question.
Are you asking? Can
Yes,
I ask
yes,
my
please.
question now? Okay. I just read as you were scrolling through there quickly that Dropbox is also going to be unable to be transferred. So anything that's in a Dropbox, because that's where all my students put all of their assignments. And we have a 2-year program, and sometimes people drop out for a couple of years and they come back and they need access to those things. So, and I never know who that's going to be. So you're telling me I won't have access to that anymore and I can't download it.
Let
Now,
me
am I understanding it correctly?
Laureen, Leanne, or Avery, do you guys know where Dropbox is using storage in Laulima?
I
Is
kind of
Dropbox?
forget, but I do want to emphasize if any of you choose to retain student data, you will have to abide and are responsible for abiding by FERPA laws and
Oh, of
regulations.
course.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so you'll have to store them someplace secure, not just anywhere on your computer.
Mhm.
So you'll have to be sure that it is stored in a very secure place. But in terms of Dropbox, I think you can download directly from Dropbox if I remember correctly. I don't have anything in Dropbox to test that on right now. Leanne, do
Okay.
you remember?
I can tool around on my own and I can get back to you folks, but I just when I saw the word Dropbox not able to migrate, I was like, okay, how do I do this?
So I believe Dropbox works just like your resources folder, at least what I'm seeing here. So
Okay.
that same CyberDuck process that I was talking about,
Mhm.
at that step 3 where it asks for server, rather than getting the URL from your resources folder, you're getting the URL from your Dropbox folder. So
Okay.
when you click on the Dropbox tool, like you see on the screen here, there's going to be a tab that says transfer files.
Uh-huh.
And right here at step 1 is that URL that you're going to want to take and put that into step 3 here on the handout.
Okay.
Yep. So
And
it looks like Dropbox works just like your resources folder, where you should be able to use CyberDuck to pull everything out by drag and drop.
so
Okay.
Ross, I'm going to butt in real quickly. It's
Yep.
11 o'clock. Do you want to just go over that last bit on the handout about using the package?
Oh yeah, yeah. So right. So I think I talked about that right before I asked. Yeah. So for this part again, as Laureen was talking about, when you export out that migrated Laulima site, right, that becomes a reference site in your Lamaku, then you package that as a Brightspace package. You download it to your computer, right, to save for a rainy day when you do decide to teach that course again, or in that format, then this is the process by which you would then restore that Brightspace package to bring that back into Lamaku, which you can then work with the content that came from that Laulima course. So again, I'm not going to cover all of the steps here, but it basically explains how you would go about the process of restoring that Brightspace package. With that said, sorry, I always talk too much. I will stop here and open up the floor for questions. And then if Leanne can or Laureen can post the link to the handout in the chat.
Yeah, we've been posting it in the chat.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and screen share if you guys want the QR code instead, I can go ahead and screen share that. But if you do have questions.
Which exports are you asking about? Are you talking about exports from the resource folder or from the Dropbox folder?
Were you asking me? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Ellen.
Ellen, I didn't hear the names.
Sorry, Ellie, you're muted.
You're on mute.
Anyway, I'm gonna assume here that Ellen, you're asking about exports from the resources.
I'm sorry. The only question I asked was answered, so I'm good.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry.
Avery, are there any questions we missed?
I don't think so, but we'll stay on for a little bit in case people have questions. Again, I'd like to thank our three speakers for their time today. They did an awesome job. I know this is a lot of information, so we will be sending out a link to you by the end of the week with the YouTube recording of this webinar, as well as a link to the handout that Ross, Laureen, and Leanne shared and lovingly put together for us. Sorry, Candy, I didn't see your hand up, but do you have a question?
Oh, just one last question. Candy always has a question. And I might have missed this because I was simultaneously making a salad. So once you get it out of the Dropbox or you get it from the resources, the information from Laulima, then is that another, like you can't open it or it will come, what kind of file is that going to be after the
Candy, you'll
download?
be able to view it. If you are downloading files from the resources folder or using CyberDuck, if it's a large amount of files, and or the Dropbox, those are files that you'll be able to view on your computer because they will be in whatever format you uploaded them in, PDF, PowerPoint, an image file. So those you'll be able to view. And I'm glad you asked that question because I was going to add for everyone, if there are files in your course sites that you want to view, not necessarily set up in a site, but just view the files, then I would recommend that you download from resources or Dropbox.
One thing to keep in mind though, if you're doing the multiple, and Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're doing the multiple, you're bringing down a bunch of files at the same time, it will probably come into a zipped folder that you'll have to unzip.
Correct.
And so that particular zipped folder you can open.
Yeah.
Because inside are files that you have the programs to read, whether it's a PDF, a Google Doc, an image, those types of things. The zipped file that comes down in your Brightspace package, if you're bringing down the entire course through the process we outlined today, that one you should not open that zip folder because the files inside of there are not anything that you can open and look at. You don't have the proper programs to open it on your computer. You have to upload that zip folder back into Lamaku in order to view it. Okay. And then Melissa had a question. Is there any way to download to stick assignment files as we can do resources CyberDuck, or should we move assignments into resources prior. So Melissa, do you want to grab the mic and explain your question? I'm not quite getting it.
Basically, I mean, Ross detailed how to download resources, and almost everything is in resources, our PDFs, etc. I'm wondering if we haven't put assignment details in Laulima into resources previously, if we can A, move those into resources, or B, if there is a way from assignments to download via CyberDuck. I don't see it here in Laulima.
You can, yeah, Melissa, thanks for your question. Assignments is not set up the way resources and Dropbox is.
Yeah.
So if are you hoping to save instructions for an assignment or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's not like you can copy what's in assignments and move them to resources so that they're in a format. What I would recommend that you do is maybe a print screen of each of those to PDF and then upload it to Google Drive or save it in a folder on your computer. Yeah.
I would probably just copy paste it into a Google Doc, because if you create a PDF, if you
at least
screenshot
you
it as a
can
PDF,
edit it in Google Docs.
Yeah.
So that's a copy paste process.
On the other hand, you don't want to fill up your Google Docs, so maybe even just do a Word file or something.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or if you print it to PDF and then just export that PDF to a Word document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, Laureen and Leanne, why wouldn't Melissa just do a migration?
I don't want it in Lamaku at this point. There's too many classes. I'd rather save the content and have ready access to it within my own system.
She wants to be able to view it if she migrates to Lamaku and then exports the package. She won't be able to view the assignment instructions and so she wants to be able to view and work with it.
The copy and paste seems like it would be fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Did we ever fix the problem in getting those classic quizzes out of Laulima and into Brightspace?
So if you're talking about quizzes created in the assignments, tests, and surveys tool, the ATS tool,
you got it.
There is a document there that's linked inside of the handout that has instructions on what you need to do in order for it to come over with the migration.
Okay, if I don't want to migrate it, but I just want to, as Melissa said, put it off to the side, maybe refer to it, maybe not. Is that possible too, or is it the only way to read it again is to put it into a sandbox?
So the only other workaround I know of is you print out the tests, but then it would be like a PDF version where you can see the questions, but either you'd have to do some kind of manipulation to make it, convert PDF to Word or copy paste. But if you just want to see the questions or, retain the questions in some way, shape, or form, you can print out a paper version of the test from the ATS tool.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Sorry I was late. I will listen to the rest of the hearing when I get the recording. Thank you.
Mahalo again, everyone, for your questions. It was great hearing all of them and talking through some of these issues between Laulima and Lamaku. Mahalo again for spending some of your summer with us, and mahalo again to our speakers. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Aloha.
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 Ahui ho.